Welcome back to Joe's Astrology. This is a mini astrology synastry reading between Rihanna and ASAP Rocky. He's on the right, she's on the left. And just as the last couple readings I did, we see that his Mars is in Aries at 3 degrees and her Venus is at 12 degrees in Aries. Pretty close conjunction there, as we saw with the last two readings I did. And we can look at her Mars is at 28 degrees Sagittarius, and his Venus is at 28 degrees Leo. So it's making a trine. So we have the conjunction in fire. They both have all the Mars and Venus in fire signs. And we have the Venus Mars trine as well. So what does that mean? Well, I think it makes a couple uh, more compatible. Number one, because it's all fire signs, so they're kind of getting what they're used to already. They're seeing themselves in another person somewhat, and that can be very attractive. Also, the idea that his Mars is conjunct her Venus. He's the Mars. You think of Mars being men and Venus being women. So his Mars contacting her Venus, it's kind of like boy meets girl in a sense that, in a very romantic sense, and it has an attraction. There's a just a very simple, basic attraction that we see between men and women, and I think when you have Mars and Venus conjunct like that, that simple, uh, primal, basic attraction between men and that we see between men and women that we have here on Earth is very much emphasized within the couple, and that is a strong. That kind of attraction is very strong, and I also think that when you have that, it's very unconscious, and when it's very unconscious, there's not really much that needs to be said or done. The couple would just need to be in each other's presence. And that's my opinion. That's my take on Mars Venus. That's what I'm seeing in my practice, and that's what I'm seeing with these celebrities. She's got a sun in Pisces, and he has a sun in Libra. By sign, we can see that that is an inconjunct. It is not a trine or an easy aspect, an inconjunct. Her sun is ruled by Pisces, and his sun is ruled by Venus. So we're gonna have to look at this Neptune, the Neptune and the Venus, because as I said in the last reading, even though these two signs are inconjunct, we have well, it's also ruled by Jupiter, but Jupiter or Neptune. Even though these signs are inconjunct, we really see two planets that are compatible, and that's Jupiter slash Neptune and Venus. Moon in Cancer over here for him, and Moon in Aries for her, conjunct that Venus. So this is where it gets tricky. The Moon for her is conjunct that Mars, so that's going to add the Moon being emotions. That's going to add a lot of femininity to that contact, where I think this could be a very emotional relationship. There could be some emotional turmoil with that Mars Moon conjunction in fire, and with his Moon squaring her Moon, and his Moon's in Cancer. The square is uh, an aspect that can bring obstacles, challenges, And with that his or her moon in Aries and um, his in Cancer, that is more indication that there will be some kind of emotional challenges in this relationship. And we see that she's a Pisces. She has a North Node in Pisces. His North Node is in Pisces. So that's I'd say that's a little bit of a mitigating factor that they're both heading towards the sign of Pisces. We don't have his birth time, so we don't really know. We don't know the houses, but they're both heading towards embracing, having to embrace an emotional life. Pisces is a very emotional sign, so that would say that would be a mitigating factor to those challenges. They may embrace those challenges. They may have, as I said, they may have a very emotional attraction to each other as well, which would help them get through those challenges because they're already starting off with this Moon Venus conjunct Mars, and with him being a moon in Cancer where it rules. And again, as I mentioned, the North Node in Pisces, they're already starting off as being emotional people. So that's something that they may appreciate in a relationship or desire in a relationship. The South Node is for both of them is in Virgo, and the ruler of that South Node is Mercury, and it's both in both air signs. She's got it in Aquarius. He has it in Libra. So where they're coming from is very similar, with the ruler, with both being the South Node in Virgo, and the ruler both being in air, and it's both their Mercuries are retrograde, so more very much compatible there. Having that Mercury in retrograde, I think it's not necessary. I don't think it's necessary to have Mercury in retrograde, but with both people in this both people having retrograde, I think helps unless the couple is very aware. Uh, and with just generally speaking, majority of people, I think it helps to have Mercury retrograde or both of them not retrograde. Unless you can appreciate how Mercury functions, unless, like I said, if you're aware, you can appreciate the other person and how their mind is different than yours and how it may operate, then it can, of course, it can still work. There can always be that attraction to something different from you versus something very similar to you. But here, this couple would be very similar in mind. Let's look at the Jupiter. He's got Jupiter in Gemini, and she has Jupiter in Aries, so that would make a sextile there by sign. And I think, with him being Jupiter in Gemini, it's ruled by Mercury, and she's coming from a place of Mercury with his Virgo and the Mercury in Aquarius. She's going to be very, she's going to be a thinker. She's going to be someone who uses her mind a lot. He's going to use his mind a lot because Jupiter is expanding that Gemini. And Gemini and Mercury likes to get around and likes to get into different things. So they're both going to be compatible on that sense that they may both be into a lot of different information and have a life that's very scattered, traveling, always on the move, and they're both gonna they might if they should be able to be compatible there if they should be very understanding of each other's tendency to be like that. Now we can look at some of the traditional things that you see, like there'll be a planet, if there's a planet on the south node of the other person. 23 degrees Virgo. We don't see any planets on their south or north node, although his his Venus is moving, would be being there 28 degrees Leo, would be moving towards her south node as well as his south node. So that could be a positive sign for the future, that the idea that Venus is moving towards the south node as we progress the chart. That would be Venus being a fortunate planet. That could be, think of Venus as being a love planet, and happiness, joy, money. These things could be coming into the life for Rihanna by being associated with ASAP. He's a money guy. Clearly, he's got that dollar sign in his name. You know, these guys typically are all about making money. We can look at the Jupiter. Her Jupiter is making a trine. Speaking of money, her Jupiter is making a trine to that Venus. So we see that as a synastry aspect would be very fortunate for this couple as well. And then his Jupiter is coming from a sextile to her Venus. So we have almost both, pretty much, it's pretty close to a sextile, 6 degrees off. So both their Jupiter and Venus, both ways, are making fortunate aspects, the most fortunate aspect that you can have, other than the conjunction, the trine and the sextile. And his Jupiter, her Jupiter is trining his Saturn exactly. And his Jupiter is an aspect to her Saturn, but it's moving towards it's in an inconjunct, which would be need for an adjustment. So still very good synastry there with these aspects between these planets, Jupiter and Saturn, to have her have Jupiter trining his Saturn. That is, they both would have understanding of the work that it takes to make money, the discipline. There should be that understanding between the two. And there could be more. It seems like they're born close to the same age. So there's more that could be said about this chart. I'm just kind of pointing out some of the more popular things that you see in synastry. And someone said that there was a comment that I'm not giving I'm just giving the astrology and I'm not explaining what it means. This is very difficult to do, and I'm trying to do both. That way you can learn astrology as well. Because you're never really gonna, if you're not learning astrology, I don't know how much value these have without learning astrology yourself. Just to take my word for it, because I am an interpreter. You have to remember, I'm interpreting these charts. It's quite difficult. And then in a 10-minute mini reading, these are mini readings. I mean, I could look at this chart for hours and hours, weeks and weeks and months to find out things, to really get down to a real good interpretation of these charts and a study of these charts. His moon, just will leave you with one more thing. The sun, actually her sun is moving towards his north node. So that would be positive as well, where she's headed. Where he's headed, her sun, which is the light of her being, right? The light, the sun, the core of her being is going to light up his north node. So because she's a Pisces, it's almost like he's moving in the right direction to be with a Pisces. He's going to like that. He's going to be attracted to that. Oftentimes you see your north node, find your north node. It's not always the case, but in some cases, uh, Pisces, the 12th house Neptune, you'll be attracted to people who are to Pisces, have Pisces planets or Pisces emphasis in their charts. But his moon is also trining her sun by sign. So we're looking at more, his emotional life, his internal life, the feminine, the feminine side of him, the motherly side of him, is very compatible to her sun being there in Pisces and the North Node. So I said that her sun was moving towards his North Node and in the same sign. Well, for him or for her, his moon is making a trine to where she's headed. You would think if to be really compatible with her North Node, she would have to be with somebody who's embracing the water signs, embracing the emotional life, embracing going with the flow, embracing finances, internal life, the internal life. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope this at least gave you some insight and some food for thought, and that you enjoyed this mini reading between Rihanna and ASAP Rocky.